Another reading of Simulacra and Simulation. The orbital and the nuclear. The apotheosis of simulation, the nuclear. However, the balance of terror is never anything but the spectacular slope of a system of deterrence that has insulated itself from the inside into all the cracks of daily life. Nuclear suspension only serves the seal of trivialized system of deterrence that is at the heart of the media, of the violence without consequences that reigns throughout the world, of the aleatory apparatus of all the choices that are made for us. The most insignificant of our behaviors is regulated by neutralized, indifferent, equivalent signs, by zero-sum signs like those that regulate the strategy of games. But the true equation is elsewhere, and the unknown is precisely that variable of simulation, which makes the atomic arsenal itself a hyperreal form, a simulacrum that dominates everything and reduces all ground-level events to being nothing but ephemeral scenarios, transforming the life left into survival, into a stake without stakes, not even into a life insurance policy, into a policy that already has no value. It is not the direct threat of atomic destruction that paralyzes our lives. It is the deterrence that gives them leukemia. And this deterrence comes from the fact that even the real atomic class is precluded like the eventuality of the real in a system of signs. The whole world pretends to believe in the reality of this threat. This is understandable on the part of the military. The gravity of their exercise and the discourse of their strategy are at stake. But it is precisely at this level that there are no strategic stakes. The whole originality of the situation lies in the improbability of destruction. Deterrence precludes war, the archaic violence of expanding systems. Deterrence itself is the neutral, implosive violence of metastable systems or systems in involution. There is no longer a subject of deterrence, nor an advisory, nor a strategy. It is a planetary structure of annihilation of stakes. Atomic war, like the Trojan War, will not take place. The risk of nuclear annihilation only serves as a pretext through the sophistication of weapons, a sophistication that surpasses any possible objective to such an extent that it is itself a symptom of nullity. For installing a universal security system, a universal lockup and control system, whose deterrent effect is not at all aimed at an atomic clash, which was never in question except without a doubt in the very initial stages of the Cold War, when one still confused the nuclear apparatus with conventional war, but rather at the much greater probability of any real event, of anything that would be an event in the general system and upset its balance. The balance of terror is the terror of balance. Deterrence is not a strategy. It circulates and is exchanged between nuclear protagonists exactly as an international capital in the orbital zone of monetary speculations whose fluctuations suffice to control all global exchanges. Thus the money of destruction, without any reference to real destruction, any more than floating capital is the real referent of production, that circulates in nuclear orbit suffices to control all the violence and potential conflicts around the world. What is hatched in the shadow of this mechanism with the pretext of maximal objective threat, and thanks to Damocles' nuclear sword, it is the perfection of the best system of control that has ever existed, and the progressive satellization of the whole planet through this hypermodel of security. The same goes for peaceful nuclear power stations. Pacification does not extinguish between the civil and the military. Everywhere where irreversible apparatuses of control are elaborated, everywhere where the notion of security becomes impotent, everywhere where the norm replaces the old arsenal of laws and violence, including war, it is the system of deterrence that grows, and around it grows the historical, social, and political desert, a gigantic involution that makes every conflict, every finality, every confrontation contract in proportion to this blackmail that interrupts, neutralizes, freezes them all. No longer can any revolt, any story be deployed according to its own logic because it risks annihilation. No strategy is possible any longer, and escalation is only a fertile game given over to the military. The political stake is dead. Only simulacra of conflicts and carefully circumscribed stakes remain. The space race played exactly the same role as nuclear escalation. This is why the space program was so easily able to replace it in the 1960s, or to develop concurrently as a form of peaceful coexistence, because what ultimately is the function of the space program, of the conquest of the moon, of the launching of satellites, if not the institution of a model of universal gravitation, of satellization of which the lunar module is the perfect embryo, programmed microcosm where nothing can be left to chance. Trajectory, energy, calculation, physiology, psychology, environment, nothing can be left to contingencies. This is the total universe of the norm. The law no longer exists. It is the operational emanence of every detail that is law, a universal purged of all threat of meaning in a state of apesis and weightlessness is the very perfection that is fascinating. The escalation of the crowds was not a response to the event of landing on the moon or sending a man into space. This would be rather the fulfillment of an earlier dream. Rather, we are dumbfounded by the perfection of the programming and the technical manipulation by the eminent wonder of programmed unfolding of events, fascination with the maximal norm and the mastery of probability, vertigo of the model, which unites with the model of death but without fear or drive, because if the law, with its aura of transgression, if order with its aura of violence still taps a perverse imaginary, the norm fixes, fascinates, stupefies, and makes every imaginary involved. One no longer fantasizes about the minutiae of a program. This watch it produces Virgo, the Virgo of a world without flaws. Now, it is the same model of programmatic infallibility, of maximum security and deterrence that today controls the spread of the social. There lies the true nuclear fallout. The meticulous operation of technology serves as a model for the meticulous operation of the social. Here as well, nothing will be left to chance. Moreover, this is the essence of socialization, which began centuries ago, but which is now entered in its accelerated phase toward a limit that one believed would be explosive revolution, but which for the moment is translated by an inverse, implosive, irreversible process. The generalized deterrence of chance, of accident, of transversality, of finality, of contradiction, rupture, or complexity in a sociality illuminated by the norm, doomed to the descriptive transparency of mechanisms of information. In fact, the spatial and nuclear models do not have their own ends, neither the discovery of the moon nor military and strategic superiority. Their truth is to be the models of simulation, the model vectors of a system of planetary control. where even the superpowers of this scenario are not free. The whole world is satellized.